Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, there lived a young princess named Isabella. She was adored by her parents, loved by her people, and destined for greatness. Her kingdom was prosperous, and everything seemed perfect until the day of the attack. A group of raiders from a neighboring kingdom invaded the peaceful land, killing many innocent people, including Isabella's parents. The young princess was traumatized by the experience, angry and resentful towards the raiders. Her entire world had come crashing down, and she was left alone to pick up the pieces. Isabella was consumed with thoughts of revenge. She wanted the raiders to pay for what they had done, and she vowed to make them suffer as much as she had. She could not let go of the grudges and resentments she held towards the raiders, and these emotions slowly consumed her from the inside out. Years passed, and Isabella became the queen of the kingdom. She ruled with an iron fist, determined to keep her people safe and secure. But deep inside, she was still struggling with the pain and anger of the past. She could not forget what had happened, and she was unable to forgive the raiders for what they had done. One day, a wise old sage came to the kingdom, and Isabella sought his counsel. She told him about her anger and her desire for revenge, and the sage listened patiently. "Forgiveness frees the soul," he said. "Holding on to negative feelings towards others can weigh heavily on one's emotional well-being. But forgiveness is not just about letting go of anger and resentment. It's also about understanding the motives and intentions of those who hurt us." Isabella was taken aback by the sage's words. She had never thought about forgiveness in that way. She had always believed that revenge was the only way to ease her pain. The sage continued. "Sometimes people pretend you're a bad person so they don't feel guilty about the things they did to you. You will never understand the damage you did to someone until the same thing is done to you. You can use this anger to do something terrible to those who hurt you, and can also use it to learn a great lesson. But if you can understand the motives and intentions of those who hurt you, you can learn to forgive them and move forward." Isabella pondered on the sage's words for days, and eventually she realized that he was right. She knew that forgiving the raiders would not be easy, but it was necessary for her well-being and the well-being of her people. So, Isabella sent a messenger to the neighboring kingdom, inviting the raiders to come to the castle for a peace talk. The raiders were surprised, but agreed to the invitation. Isabella gets a hand on work and spent countless sleepless nights preparing for the peace talks. She had gone over every detail meticulously, making sure that nothing was left to chance. She had ordered the finest food and wine to be served, and had instructed her servants to ensure that everything was in order. She had even arranged for the palace musicians to play their most soothing melodies, hoping that the music would calm the nerves of the raiders who were about to arrive. The day of the peace talks arrived, and Isabella was filled with excitement and anticipation. The people of her kingdom had gathered outside the palace gates, eagerly waiting to welcome the raiders. The tension in the air was palpable, and everyone was on edge, wondering what would happen next. But as the hours ticked by, there was no sign of the raiders. Isabella's heart sank, and she felt a sense of despair wash over her. She had put so much effort into preparing for the peace talks, and now it seemed as though all her hard work had been for nothing. As the sun began to set, Isabella retired to her chambers, feeling dejected and defeated. She had failed in her attempt to make peace with the raiders, and she didn't know what to do next. But then, the wise sage who had been advising her throughout the entire process appeared before her. "Your Highness," he said, "do not be disheartened. The raiders did not come because they knew the gravity of what they had done. Guilt is a heavy burden, and it is worse than any punishment. They could not bear to face you because they knew the pain they had caused." Isabella felt a sense of relief wash over her as she listened to the sage's words. She realized that her efforts to make peace had not been in vain, and that even though the raiders had not shown up, she had still succeeded in making them realize the gravity of their actions. The sage continued, "Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you will be criticized anyway. The opinions of others should not matter to you, as long as you are true to yourself and your values." Isabella nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that she had to continue to do what was right, even if it meant facing criticism and opposition. She vowed to redouble her efforts to make peace with the raiders, and to never give up on her quest for a peaceful and harmonious world. The next day, Isabella woke up early and set about her work with renewed energy and enthusiasm. She continued to prepare for the peace talks, even though she knew that the raiders might not show up. She did everything in her power to make the talks a success, and she knew that she had given it her all. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but Isabella did not give up. She continued to work tirelessly towards her goal, never losing hope or faith. And finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the raiders sent word that they were ready to talk. Isabella felt a sense of joy and relief wash over her as she read the message. She knew that her efforts had not been in vain, and that she had succeeded in making peace with her former enemies. And as she welcomed the raiders into her kingdom, she knew that she had achieved something truly remarkable. Forgiveness had freed her soul, and it had brought about a lasting peace that would benefit generations to come. When the day of the peace talk arrived, Isabella greeted the raiders with a smile and a warm welcome. She offered them food and drink, and they sat down to talk. Isabella spoke from her heart, telling the raiders how much their attack had hurt her and her people. But she also acknowledged that revenge was not the answer. She told them that she wanted to forgive them and move forward towards a peaceful coexistence. The raiders were taken aback by Isabella's words. They had expected her to be angry and vengeful, but instead, she had shown them kindness and forgiveness. They apologized for their actions and vowed never to attack the kingdom again. For they knew that their guilt had been robbing the body of its soul in them through all the years. From that day on, Isabella and the raiders worked together to build a peaceful future for their kingdoms. They traded goods, shared resources, and even helped each other during times of crisis. The once bitter enemies had become friends. Isabella felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. She was no longer burdened by anger and resentment. Forgiving the raiders had freed her soul, and she could finally move forward with a clear mind. Isabella's act of forgiveness had a ripple effect on the entire kingdom. The people saw their queen's bravery and willingness to forgive, and they followed her lead. Forgiveness became a common practice in the kingdom, and people learned to let go of their grudges and resentments towards one another. The neighboring kingdom also changed. They had learned from their mistakes and had become a more peaceful nation. The two kingdoms continued to trade and help each other, cementing their friendship for generations to come. As time passed, Isabella's act of forgiveness became a legend that was passed down from generation to generation. Parents told their children about the power of forgiveness and the importance of letting go of grudges and resentments. The story became a symbol of hope and inspiration for all those who had suffered at the hands of their enemies. Isabella's life had been transformed by forgiveness, and her legacy lived on long after her passing. The people of the kingdom remembered her as a wise and just ruler who had brought peace and prosperity to their land. They knew that forgiveness was not a sign of weakness, but rather it was a strength that could bring about great change and transformation. Forgiveness is not always easy, and it may take time to come to terms with your feelings. But when you forgive someone, you free yourself from the negative emotions that can weigh you down. You can move forward with a clear mind and a renewed sense of purpose. In the end, forgiveness can transform not only your life, but also the lives of those around you. When you choose to forgive, you choose to let go of anger and resentment and embrace a future filled with hope and possibility. And so, the kingdom thrived, and the people lived in peace and harmony. Forgiveness had indeed freed the soul of one brave queen, and it had also brought peace to two nations that had once been bitter enemies. The lesson of the story was clear. Forgiveness is not weakness, but rather it is a strength that can bring about great change and transformation. The end. Thank you for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos like this from this channel. Don't hesitate to drop your comments below. We love you.